talked about there's less than 2% of other Black women that are intellectual property lawyers. But what does that makeup look like, and where is the industry headed now? Because I see it more now than ever, obviously, because
Yeah.
I'm a business owner. But before that, I had not a clue.
Right. Me neither. Like I tried to find like a mentor in the state of North Carolina who was a Black woman at the time, and I couldn't find anybody who had like a solo practice. So I ended up trying to reach out to some other individuals for support. And so definitely since that time, I mean, 6 years is a short time, but there have been much more diversity in the realm of intellectual property representation with respect to legal.
Mhm.
And also, I think there's been a level that has been raised in terms of the market sophistication of entrepreneurs with understanding the value of their intellectual property, what that even is, and why they should protect it. I think we have a long way to go. And so that's for individuals like me for to fill in that gap. But I definitely think that there has been an increase. And I think competition is good. It's always good for individuals to have choices, for them to be able to find folks who have the right fit and are in alignment with what they want to do with their businesses. And so I think the industry is evolving in terms of diversity, which is great. And also in terms of how we service clients and how we could potentially leverage I believe that lawyers
Mm.
have to look and see with AI and legal tech. And there's a lot of development that's happening in the legal tech space, which one of the things that I eventually want to get into. Um, but man, we have to really make sure we have our finger on the pulse of what's happening because traditionally the legal industry has always been several steps behind other.
Welcome to the Analytical Rewired, the best place to discuss various obstacles, limitations, challenges, behaviors, and how to overcome them in business. We deep dive into the complexities of people, processes, data, and technology, PPDT, adopting our focus to be either technical or creative expressions, and how to balance the two. The Analytical Rewired is brought to you by the MJW Group, a performance improvement and leadership development boutique management consulting firm that helps companies save time and money leveraging operational excellence. Our mission is to enable your organization to be more successful by refining overarching strategies into detailed plans to be implemented, generate creative and technical solutions for your operational challenges, augment and supplement your existing teams, and help you create processes that allow you to be more efficient with the resources you have. You can learn more about the MJW Group on our website at themjwgrp.com.
Welcome to the Analytical Rewired. I am your host, Jennifer White, CEO of the MJW Group, and I have my co-host here with me, Sarah Ashley. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good today. We're kicking 2023. There's so much that's already been done and accounted for. It's crazy how fast this year is happening.
I know. It's already the end of February. Since when?
I know. It's surreal. But I am excited for our guest today. I've waited a while to have her on, and I'm just so excited to get into our conversation with attorney Ticora Davis. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I met Ticora 6 years ago when we first started the MJW group, like really in the beginning stages. And don't ask me how I knew that we needed to trademark our name and our logo, but some kind of way I did. And
And I
she's
copyrighted some stuff for you as well.
yes, our leadership book, The 12 Elements of Exceptional Leadership. Exactly. And yeah, I don't know how that idea came into Marcus and I's brain, but we did. Where I'm sure Attorney Davis will talk about most companies and organizations may not think about these things till later on. But we did it very quickly on in our entrepreneurship journey. So uh we just thank her for everything she's taught us over the years, and we continue to work together till this day. So Attorney Davis, would you like to start by telling the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Of course. So I am attorney Ticora Davis. I'm the founder and chief Esquire officer at the Creators Law Firm. So what we do at the firm is, I'm a trademark attorney and business attorney, and people pay us for trademark registration, copyright registration, contract drafting, and even licensing. And also I provide some trademark and IP strategic support with respect to the consulting aspects of how you should build and brand your intellectual property portfolio, various ways to actually monetize that portfolio, and what you should actually go about protecting first, because sometimes that is the biggest question that people have, like, where do I start? So that is who I am, what I do, and a little bit about the people that I actually serve.
Awesome. And you're in North Carolina.
Yes. Born and raised. I'm a Carolina girl.
Yeah, but you service all over, right? Not just in this state.
Yeah, not just nationwide, but even worldwide. We do have some clients in different countries as well. And we have provided support with protecting brands in at least 36 different states from the last time that I counted.
Wow.
That's cool.
Oh my gosh. I did not know that. You're
I,
global.
Worldwide.
I didn't know either. Like, I had to file my trademark again for the Creators Law Firm. And so there's different levels of strength to trademarks. And a trademark is, a business name, tagline, logo, whatever it is that you're going to use to help your audience to identify you and distinguish you from your competitors and counterparts. And so the Creators Law Firm, when I filed it, I had to submit some additional evidence. And then I was like, I need to know how many states we've served and how many countries. And so it was really interesting to go and dig deep, and we found out that number. And so it's probably increased a little bit since then, but I'm pretty confident about that 36 number at least.
That's amazing. And we were talking a little bit before we hit the record button about your growth. And like I said, we've been in her environment for 6 years now, just about. And I can't even, I'm like speechless. Like the amount of progress you have made with the Creators Law Firm, it's just amazing. And the many lives you've been able to help and touch and, help grow these businesses out here and really educate. Like I said, you educated us a lot on what's important and what should you do, and just the random questions that we would ask along the way. Being able to have those answers, like it's just been a great learning for us.
I think that's really important. Just through my lens as a Black woman who practices this type of law, only 1.8% of intellectual property attorneys are Black. And so that's about 550 of us across the entire United States.
Wow.
But oftentimes, those of us who identify as such, we are proudly tasked with serving some of the most marginalized groups of entrepreneurs, whether that be Black men and women and even female entrepreneurs. And so a very small number of attorneys who are developing a specialized skill set are also serving the fastest growing population of entrepreneurs. And so I recognize very early that educating my audience and empowering them with the legal knowledge that they need to protect their brand is instrumental and foundational to what it was that I built, which is why I've always tried to elevate. And you're going through now a new trademark process, right? And now that process is vastly different from the first time, because I created this box and I actually made a game. Like, I gamified the trademark process, which is cool. It's kind of like a little Candyland board inside of your box with stickers and things like that. But it's really important that we understand what it means to own property, whether it be personal property, real property, but intellectual property, and what that looks like as you're going throughout the journey.
Love it. Love it. I did share the game with
I was
Sarah.
about to say, I saw it and I loved it. I thought it was so cool.
Thank you.
I was like,
It
ooh,
is.
that makes me happy. It looks so creative and fun. And yeah, I loved it.
I worked my butt off on that for like 6 months.
Because you could tell. You could tell there was a lot of detail added in there.
There's a lot of love and a lot of detail. And I just wanted to Because sometimes it's a lot to get all these emails and just say, okay, the trademark process can take about a year and a half. Copyright might take, 6 to 8 months, sometimes a little longer, even less time, depending upon the type of copyright that you have. And many times it's someone's first time either hiring
Mm.
a lawyer or even going through this process. And so for those first timers, or even people who've done it before, but they didn't have the best experience, I really want to blow that off the lid and really give them something that's tangible to complement this virtual digital service experience.
Mhm.
Yeah, it definitely shows.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
definitely shows, and we love it. We love it. And I know you talked about you have a biological degree,
I have a
science.
biological sciences degree. Yes, so I'm a scientist at heart, I guess, as my old plant physiology professor, Dr. Wendy Boss, would say. She's like, "You guys are scientists," and I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." I don't really feel like that, but okay, cool. Yeah.
So
So yeah.
so how did we get to IP from there? How did that come about?
I think IP happened because of that, right? And so ever since I was a little girl, I actually said I wanted to be a lawyer. I have like my fourth grade homework to prove it. I was really into the OJ Simpson trial at the time,
Oh my
and
God.
I thought he was innocent. Like I was like, free OJ, like on my heart kind of thing. And my discernment has strengthened since then, and so so I've had that, and I was just a very shy child, and I would cry all the time. I never would talk to people, like until I got to maybe 13, 14, I actually felt a little bit confident in public.
Mm,
And so that's very weird when people are like, "You were shy?" Like
I know. Like,
it
Would
was
have never
like
guessed.
people would say hello, like hi, and I would cry. Like I would cry when people spoke to me,
mm,
and my mom is like the toughest lady. And she's like, how did I get this little Daisy as a daughter? Like she's so fragile. Like she would be so irritated with me. But anyway, and so I think just being very shy, I saw how powerful lawyers were. Then it came to a part where I was like, maybe I'm not strong enough to do that. Maybe I'll try to do something else to make my parents proud. I'll be a doctor, right? Because I didn't know that there were so many different types of occupations at the time. I was like, lawyer, doctor, those are my choices, right? And so I began to pursue um, a biology degree because I felt like I'll become a doctor. I'll be an ophthalmologist. I wanted to be an ophthalmologist. Okay, whatever. And so probably about, it took me a while to get my undergraduate degree, but for a while there, like I'm like maybe a year out from getting this degree. I'm conducting research on genetically modified tomatoes and analyzing the heat tolerance of tomatoes and this extreme heat thermophile called pyrococcus furiosus. But anyway, I was like really analyzing this in the whether or not the protein translated. It was a lot. And I literally was in the lab in the middle of washing beakers, and I'm like, this is stupid. Like this is
You
where
were
you
like
belong.
tomatoes.
Yeah, like girl, you took a left when you should have taken a right. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But that's what I thought. And so I remember speaking with Dr. Boss, and she was saying how they had patents. And so that was my first introduction to
mm,
intellectual property. She was saying, we have plant patents. And I was like, well, what's a patent? She was like, oh, it's how you can own an invention. And, you can't own a patent on something that's naturally occurring or man-made. We have kind of, manipulated some of these she was basically trying to increase the heat tolerance of tomatoes. Tomatoes can only grow in certain temperatures, but if you can allow them to grow or thrive in a hotter climate, the whole theory was maybe these could be planted in a different environment, and hunger and
mm.
all this type of stuff, curing hunger or whatever. And so, but anyway, that was my first introduction to plant patents. And even then, Dr. Voss was telling me we need scientists in Washington, and we need lawyers that are scientists. And I'm like, okay, this is really weird. Like, let me explore this a little bit more. I've never heard of this stuff before, these patents. And so remember talking with someone kind of, I went back and I said, I think this law thing this idea I had when I was younger, I want to explore that. And I went and talked to a guy who helped people get into law school at the university. And, I was like, do I need to take certain classes? I've only been taking science classes. He's like, no, you can have any type of degree that you need to get in law school. And I'm like, what? Like, oh, so anyway, I took like a gap year. Well, it's not even a gap year. I took a year off. I actually got a job on the Hill and I worked for Congresswoman Marsha Fudge. I was her intern. Then I went to be her staff assistant and legislative correspondent. And I applied for law school while I was there. And so then I ended up getting in. So that was kind of like this twisted path. And so I entered into law school thinking I would be a patent attorney and I'm going to help people protect their inventions. And then I took a patent drafting course and I was like, I feel like I'm back in a science lab. I really don't think I like it because patents are heavy science engineering based, and you have to, if you're a patent lawyer, you have to have a science engineering or biology degree. You have to have some sort of science degree. But while I was in the class, there was a Black woman who came in and did a guest lecture, and she worked at Coca-Cola, and she was a trademark and a copyright attorney. And I saw her and I saw myself. Like when she was talking about what she did, I was like, that's what I want to do. I had like this moment where it was on like Zoom, like I don't even know if it was Zoom back then, but I was watching her through the screen and I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. And from that moment on, I said, I want to be a trademark attorney. Never got the opportunity to take a trademark course at all in law school, but I knew from seeing her and hearing what she talked about, that's what I wanted to do. And make a long story short, graduated law school, didn't pass the bar the first time, but got a job offer as an intellectual property analyst. Because I had this patent drafting and science background, I ended up being this, I worked at this company and people would submit ideas and I would analyze whether or not they were eligible for patent protection or not. So I was like this first line of defense for the company. And if we accepted their idea, we had engineers who could build it, as seen on TV, was in the same building. So that was how I began to understand the heart of inventors and entrepreneurs, because I probably analyzed well over 300 potentially patentable products. So this was kind of like this twisted road to eventually open up this law firm, but that's kind of how it all happened.
Isn't it so funny how life quite literally took you back to the journey that you originally thought you were going to go on?
It's predestined.
It is, and I feel like it will always correct you. When you're on the wrong path, it'll always correct you, no matter what.
Always.
Yeah.
I mean, we can just listen to our 7 and 8-year-old selves. We might be all in a
Right?
better place. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I was going to be a cheerleader at that age. And then in college or high school, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a management consultant. So
I always said I was going to be a dancer. I always said I was going to be a dancer, and I did all the way up until college. I actually went to college for it originally, so I tried. But then life actually corrected me, and it took me down the path that I'm on now. So
I love it.
Yeah.
So with that winding road journey where you are now, how have you seen your industry shift? Like you talked about, there's less than 2% of other Black women that are intellectual property lawyers, but what does that makeup look like, and where is the industry headed now? Because I see it more now than ever, obviously, because I'm a business owner. But before that, I had not a clue.
Right. Me neither. Like I tried to find like a mentor in the state of North Carolina who was a Black woman at the time, and I couldn't find anybody who had like a solo practice, so I ended up trying to reach out to some other individuals for support. And so definitely since that time, I mean 6 years is a short time, but there have been much more diversity in the realm of intellectual property representation with respect to legal. And also I think there's been a level that has been raised in terms of the market sophistication of entrepreneurs, with understanding the value of their intellectual property, what that even is, and why they should protect it. I think we have a long way to go, though. And so that's for individuals like me to fill in that gap. But I definitely think that there has been and increase. And I think competition is good. You know, it's always good for individuals to have choices, for them to be able to find folks who have the right fit and are in alignment with what they want to do with their businesses. And so I think the industry is evolving in terms of diversity, which is great. And also in terms of how we service clients and how we could potentially leverage AI. I believe that lawyers have to look and see with AI and legal tech, and there's a lot of development that's happening in the legal tech space, which one of the things that I eventually want to get into. But man, we have to really make sure we have our finger on the pulse of what's happening, because traditionally the legal industry has always been several steps behind other industries as it relates to innovation. And so I definitely see that on the horizon for my realm and, you know, what I'm doing right now.
Awesome. And we love talking about technology here. We normally talk about people, processes, data, and technology at the MJW group. But Sarah, hopefully you can pick up on, because we've done, I don't know, probably 20 or so recordings now. And every business owner we speak with, they always reference the technology. But I think Ticora's is the first one. She's the first one that's mentioned the AI component.
I was going to actually say something about that, which is very interesting because I know recently a lot of like photos or art have come out of AI like creations. And it's actually caused a lot of artists to be upset because it quite literally pulls from work that they've created to create these other works of art that AI have done. And you know, it's interesting that you brought it up because I wanted to ask about it and kind of like your thoughts, or if you're seeing anything about that, especially being, you know, for the creators.
Most definitely. Like, for example, you know, Meta Birkins, right? So there was, I think last year when people, you know, everybody was talking about the metaverse and, you know, all this type of stuff. And someone was creating bags for sale within the metaverse and they called them Meta Birkins, and they were designing them in all sorts of ways. And you know, even though Birkins hadn't yet entered into that space, it still infringed on their intellectual property and their copyright. And, you know, I think there was recently, like within the past couple of days, and right now it's February 21st of 2023 when we're recording this, but probably within the past 5 to 7 days, I saw that Birkins had won a lawsuit for infringement. And so what we're seeing is that although this artificial or this AI intelligence and things of that nature is available, from ChatGPT to Jasper to so many different apps, we have to also make sure that the human element is there as it relates to using and exercising sound judgment so that you are not infringing on anyone else's intellectual property, especially for those of us who are content creators. And we may turn around and use some of these images or things that AI has actually developed for commercial purposes. That if it's something that's for personal use or maybe even educational use and social commentary, those are generally fall within the exceptions of fair use underneath the Copyright Act, and that's completely fine. However, what happens is when you start to monetize some of these things, and so the law again is trying to catch up with innovation. Like, how are our current laws going to be applied to these new ones? Laws have not even been written. And so I think some people think that law is static, but it's not. It's always evolving, ever evolving. And I think that's the beauty of this country, as well as, you know, some of our canons and legislation and different types of statutes. It's going to evolve, albeit it'll be behind the times a lot of times. And so basically legal is catching up with all these different things that are happening at rapid speed and rapid pace. And so I'm definitely seeing that. That's definitely something we have to all be aware of. But I think in terms of like a general point of guidance for us all, particularly those of us who are creating content and we are entrepreneurs, having really strong social media policies for those who are stepping in to provide support to you. A lot of businesses don't have that. And so they may outsource social media creation, captions, copy to third-party contractors, but you have to make sure that they're going to be in compliance with whatever your social media standards are. And sometimes in the absence of standards, people don't act as if they have standards, and they don't always operate in integrity. We assume that people operate with the same level of integrity that we do, but then we are surprised if we get hit with a cease and desist because it's our business. And so it's our responsibility. And so those are just some things that I think we need to really keep our ears to the ground about.
I wish I'd met you so long ago. So long ago. Because that happened to me a little bit. My intellectual property I got served with a cease and desist, and it was my own intellectual property that they were trying to take from me. So yeah, so I wish I had met you sooner.
Yeah, I've had it's so interesting. I had a case like that where there were so people also just don't understand. They think, oh, if I have an idea first, or even if I create a logo first, or sometimes even if I put up a website first, then I own this trademark or whatever. So I had a client that came to me, they said, listen, we're going to sell these, like, it was like some cashmere type scarves from a different country. Can't even remember all the details now, but they got a cease and desist from this woman. And I said, listen, Attorney Davis, like, we looked, we saw that even though she used to have a website, it wasn't active anymore. Her business isn't active anymore. Her social media page isn't active anymore. And so we felt comfortable proceeding and moving ahead. Well, the moment that she saw that they were putting out content, making sales, she began to comment on all of their social media saying, you guys are infringing on my intellectual property. You need to take this down. I'm going to sue you. So they just, I went to law school with the guy, and he's like, listen, this is my wife's business. Like, I don't know this, but this feels really weird to me. I looked into it. And so I had to send her a polite letter, and I had to let her know, if you're saying that you own the trademark, please produce, a registered trademark for this. And so not only did I ask her to do that, I said, you need to also produce a receipt for the very first sale that you made. And so she could produce neither. And she was telling me, well, according to this article on LegalZoom, I have the trademark. And I said,
oh, heavens.
I had to explain to her, you are mistaken about the law. LegalZoom is not a reliable source for legal.
Like saying WebMD is reliable.
Right. And I told her that trademark rights attach to either the first person to file a trademark application or the first person to make a sale. And because she has neither done either of them, then she actually doesn't have the rights to this name. Simply purchasing a website domain or even forming a business is not sufficient. You have to make a sale. You have to affect commerce, which means you have to stimulate the economy through the buying and selling and trading of goods. And because you have not done that, you are the one who's actually infringing on my client's intellectual property. And you should cease and desist, and you should destroy your website. And if you continue to behave in this way, this would be grounds for defamation, right? And so she was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to remove all the comments. So what happened was she literally didn't know. And that's the danger when people are so quick to send a cease and desist. What can happen is you trigger a lawsuit against yourself. And so people just don't realize, or they think, well, I can mail a copy of my idea to myself, and I'm going to own a copyright, or I'm going to own the trademark. And those poor man's copyrights and poor man's trademarks, those things just have never existed in this country. And we have a system for protecting your intellectual property, and that's called the United States Patent and Trademark Office and the United States Copyright Office. And those are the systems that we should use if we actually want to claim legal ownership over our intellectual property.
Bars.
I wish I'd met you.
Bars. Because
I had a lawyer, but I just don't think he really knew any of. Obviously, he was in a different realm. He was the one that helped create the contract, the original contract,
right,
for the business. But it wasn't anything to do with, obviously, like intellectual property. I was also very fresh, so I didn't understand the importance of that, of trademarking and copywriting, all of that.
Yeah.
And I wish things would be a lot different, I think, if I had just known that, honestly.
Right. And I think that's the thing for all of us. It would be way different if we all knew, right? And sometimes we just don't know. We have no idea. And it's not our fault per se, right? Because we are literally just trying. The thing is that when people have the idea, you have to get up enough gumption and confidence to actually launch this thing, whatever this may be. And so now you fought against yourself and your imposter syndrome and your analysis paralysis to finally put yourself out there and be vulnerable. And then you get hit with this legal document that's super scary. And you're like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong. And you would think, well, of course, if a lawyer is sending it to me, then the lawyer probably did their due diligence and they're correct. But I have found many times that if a lawyer does not specialize or focus their practice in intellectual property, they get a lot of things wrong. And I've had to correct several of them myself on behalf of my clients. And so I had the same thing, a conversation. My client had filed her trademark first. She had gotten it. And so he was saying, well, we put the social media post up first before your client. So that means that we have the intellectual property rights. And I said, you're mistaken. He was trying to get me to enter into a coexistence agreement. And I told him that's not how this works. And she will not be entering into a coexistence agreement with you. She has zero interest. And your client, your client's trademark is going to fail. And so he kind of was a little upset about it. But if he would have done his due diligence, or if he would have been playing around in this kind of the legal end of the kiddie pool with respect to that part, like the trademark end of the kiddie pool, and he just would have stayed over there with whatever it was that was his specialty, then his client would not have wasted time or money. And so that's just what happens sometimes. You have to have a really savvy attorney who knows this and understands the nuances and ins and outs to be able to navigate. And a lot of people think that everybody is cut from the same cloth, and they're just not.
No. And more bars, just bars, just drop them all at once. That's that left brain coming out, right? It's just that analytical and logical and structure and these are the office hours. This is my big red voice from the 5 Heartbeats. My office hours are 9 to 5. So if you'd like to talk to me during that time, please come. Thank you. Have a good day.
Amen. You got to tell them.
You have to let people know, but I love it. I love it because I agree. Like I'm an engineer, so inherently I'm just analytical. I have to have structure. I can't just wallow and gallop in the field. I've tried. It doesn't work for me. I'm learning.
Oh, that's my favorite thing to do.
I am learning. But I think if we have to have a balance of two, like, right, anybody who owns a business, there's no way you can generate ideas and innovate like Ticora is mentioning. And when you go to put that into practice, you have to scale, you have to have structure, you have to have some containment, right? Because you can't allow your ideas and how you generate revenue and money into your business to just go off the rail, right? Especially if you have employees and contractors and people working for you. Everybody can't go off doing their own thing, right? So there has to be some structure, and that's why I love this podcast, because we have to constantly balance, right? I'm using, you're balancing the scales. What's that thing called? What's y'all
Lady Justice.
Lady Justice has to balance.
She's around here somewhere.
I use that a lot, like the scales has to balance at some point, right? It's like a yin and a yang thing. So I definitely love those two examples. Two totally different examples, but good observations and examples of, what could possibly happen if you're not careful. And just one little I didn't know or I thought could lead to other things down the line that you don't want happening.
I think that's the part. Like, I think I've created this tool. It's called the Creator's Compass, and I'm going to be releasing it, and my book will be based off of it. But it's really, how do you safely and strategically scale from 0 to 1 million? And what should you be doing? Like, which legal levers should you be pulling at every single day? Because what happens is you start and you're inundated with, I have to do all these things. And some things don't make sense at certain levels. So if you're just getting started, you likely are a team of one. You don't need to focus on team building and HR and employee contracts and human HR manuals and all this type of stuff, because that's premature for the stage that you're in. But as you continue to grow and you say, okay, I am building a team, this is what this looks like, then those things are going to be important to you. Also, there should just be some fundamental contracts that you have in place at those particular levels. And if you don't have those in place, it leaves you open for these legal targets that could be on your back. And so many businesses right now are walking around and they have multiple targets on their brand's back, and they don't realize that they're at risk. And the larger you grow and the more people that you bring on, whether they're employees or contractors, you get additional targets. And so now you're exposed. And so I think people don't recognize that. And I think it's difficult for them to actually quantify, so to speak, or even qualify, a little bit of both, because intellectual property is not something that you can purchase like this Red Bull and you can touch it and you can see. What it is, it's not even a figment of our imagination either, because most businesses, their value is really tied up between 40 to 60% of intellectual assets. And so sometimes it's very difficult for us to be able to rationalize, oh, these are these invisible targets, but if I get hit, it could bring my entire business down. And that's the scary part, not knowing what you don't know, and then feeling so comfortable in your ignorance. I heard something today. It's like, you can be innocent and ignorant. So you can be innocently going about and just trying to do. A lot of my clients tell me, Ticora, I just want to do it the right way. That's all I want to do. I want to get it right, and I'm here for it, right? And they can be innocent parties, and they can make innocent mistakes, and they can still be ignorant, and they have to suffer the consequences of their ignorance, despite them being innocent.
Yeah, I call that unconscious competent. Very capable, but just didn't know.
Right. Right.
All right. Love that, Ticora. As we wrap up here, what are 1 to 2 things that you've had to totally rewire, right? Change about how you run the Creators Law Firm? Because it's been 6 years for you as well.
Yep. 6 years.
Yeah. What have you totally rewired?
So many things. Okay, so bigger is not always better. I had this really big team, and I thought, oh, because we're bigger, we're going to get more done. We're going to make more money. And actually, that's not what happened at all. I felt like because I made more money that I had to hire more people. And that was probably the 3rd year in business that things really exploded. And so I thought, I'm Oprah. You get a job. You get a job. Right? And so I'm passing out jobs like they're cars. And making hard decisions, like my feelings will get me into trouble. And so the biggest thing that I've learned is that I have to make data-driven decisions that deliver results. And so if I look at data, each person who comes in to help partner with me in the vision, there has to be a return on the investment that that person produces. And so are you helping me generate more revenue? Are you creating more peace? Are you solidifying this business? And so really making data-driven decisions as it relates to all areas of my business, particularly when it comes to bringing on someone who's, are they going to be a contractor or a W-2? That has been instrumental. The biggest lesson also is that I am not the business. That's been so hard, right? Because my identity is wrapped up in the Creators Law Firm. And so when I have these moments where we are on top of the world and we're making all this money, I'm like, I'm the queen, like I'm everything, right? And then when you like hit that valley season in entrepreneurship, you're like, start singing old Negro spirituals and rocking back and forth, like you're like, oh, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, did I make a mistake? And I realized Ticora, your confidence was not placed in the Lord. Your confidence was placed in all the accolades and how many people were on the team. And so I've learned to not define my worth and my worthiness by how big we are, how much money we make, how much money's in the bank, because that's an emotional roller coaster that I've decided to get off. I'm just like, that's
My
the
turn.
ride.
Bars.
That's the ride at the theme park. I'm like, I don't want to do that ride. Pick somebody else to do that one. Like, I don't want to get on the emotional CEO roller coaster. So I think those things are really striving to allow me to have a better balance, and to protect my heart. I think in business, we have to say goodbye to a lot of people. You have people who come in, you come out, and I'm like, oh, I've had some hard goodbyes, but I don't know if, some of those goodbyes, maybe they didn't necessarily have to happen if I made a better data-driven decision. So those things that I'm learning along the way.
Love
Very
it.
much
Love it.
agree. Very
Love
much
it.
agree.
Yes. Yes. We love data here. and,
Me too.
and we love talking about data-driven decisions. So yes, totally agree. I find myself what you're like right now, I find myself what you just experienced because we climbed a really high mountain last year. And then this year came and I was just like, I feel like we're going down the mountain quick. And I have all sorts of emotions, but I had realized a week or so ago, just like you said, I'm not going to be on that roller coaster anymore. I have to trust into the universe and God to take care of the needs and wants and desires. Jennifer has no control over any of that.
Yeah. You know what? Absolutely. And I think many of us who have solo businesses and small businesses, people are saying, you got to go big. You got to build a team. That may not be everybody's testimony. And I think it's okay. I'm recognizing that just because you make almost $1 million or 900,000, it doesn't mean that you're bringing home that much money. If you're, we need to talk a lot more about profit, not revenue. A lot of people don't have that profit conversation. And so you can make all this money, but it doesn't mean that you're keeping it. You can get negative profitability. And so having more of those transparent conversations is absolutely needed, because otherwise people will feel like they're failures. Like last year, I didn't make as much money as the previous 2 years, but my profit was way more. I was like, oh, this feels actually good, because the previous years, the profit didn't look anything like that. And I'm like, that's amazing. I'm so happy. And I think the final note too, not that you guys asked for it, but I'm going to give it. I was talking with my therapist and I was like, this is my selfish season. I'm going to take care of me. She's like, that's not called selfish. It's called self-care. And I was like, bars. Okay, Miss Therapist lady. Because I was thinking that putting myself first, making sure I had a consistent paycheck, making sure I'm being positioned for the opportunities that I want, maybe, all of that felt very selfish to me. And she's like, the whole point of me having this business was for me to create a better life for myself. And hopefully when people come along the way, they can also be blessed too. But the first and foremost primary beneficiary should be me and my family. And I think I lost that along the way, trying to be Jesus Jr. And I'm not Jesus Jr. Okay. So those are just, it's okay to pursue self-care in the business. And we can define that however we choose to.
Right. Bars again. I love it. What did you call yourself? Jesus Jr.
Yeah, or Holy Ghost Jr. Either one. You pick your nickname.
Is that trademarked?
Somebody told me that and I fell out. My mentor, she was like, you're not a Jesus Jr. I was like, trying to be, but maybe I am. She was like, oh my goodness.
Oh goodness. Oh wow. Well, thank you so much, Ticora, for joining us today. This went a little longer than expected, but definitely great gems, bars, nuggets, diamonds, gold coins, mushroom power-ups, flower pots for Mario, whatever you want to call it. It was amazing. And Sarah, we definitely got to get the rest of the team to watch this, because we've been having a lot of conversations around data, profit, revenue, team expansion, team decrease, like all of these topics are so relevant to what we've been going through at the MJW group.
Very much so. And I think a lot of people are experiencing it as well. And so I think it's just a reflection of how we are maturing as entrepreneurs ourselves. So I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you so much for sharing your audience with me. I never take it lightly. And I really am thankful that I had the opportunity to chat with you both today.
Yay.
Yeah, Ticora, where can the audience connect with you? How can they get in touch with you? Is there anything you wanted to leave? I don't know if you have like a one pager or a link or something we can put in the show notes for the audience.
Oh yeah, I'm working on a new lead magnet right now, but if you go to creatorslawfirm.com, you can definitely be able to connect with us there. Alternatively, you can follow me on social media at my first and last name, on Instagram at Ticora Davis, or even Creators Law Firm there, and on Twitter at Creators Lawyer. But the fun and the magic goes down a lot on my Instagram page at Ticora Davis. That's a great place to go.
Okay. Well, thanks again for being with us here today. We truly appreciate your time and energy and conversation. Everyone, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.